Okay, so we are going live right now. Let me go ahead and get the URL for the YouTube live stream. Should be coming up online in yeah. Okay, we got that. So if you ever wanted to take a look at the YouTube live stream, then it's going to be available at this link over here. But with that out of the way, let's start our class. So this is HackerFrogs AfterSchool SQL Injection Part 2 with Try Hack Me. Actually, we're going to be using Try Hack Me in the latter part of the class, but I think in the front end of the class we might be using more Pico CTF exercises. So if you're not already logged into your Pico CTF, I would suggest logging into your Pico CTF as well. So what did we learn in the previous workshop? This is the 7th Intro to Web App Hacking workshop, and in the previous workshop we learned about the following web app hacking concepts. So we learned about SQL injection. SQL injection vulnerabilities can lead to sensitive data exposure, admin account takeover, web server takeover, and more. So SQL injection is a very serious type of web app security vulnerability. So we talked about a couple of different types of SQL injection. The first type was in-band SQL injection. And what in-band SQL injection is SQL injection where the results of the injected query can be seen in the output of the web app. It is considered to be the easiest type of SQL injection to exploit. So this is the easiest one. And we also talked about error-based SQL injection, which is also a type of in-band SQL injection, where error messages from the database software are returned to the web app interface. So for example, if we've got our URL address bar over here, and we sent some sort of input that caused an error in the database, then it would show us this error message in the web app, which means that we've confirmed that there is some sort of interface with the database that's going on through user input. We also talked about union-based SQL injection, and union-based SQL injection is a type of SQL injection where you use SQL union select statements in order to output additional database information from the web app. So basically, whenever you're using the database to retrieve information to output to the web app, you can also use this union select in order to get more information from the database in addition to whatever is supposed to be returned. We also talked a little bit about blind SQL injection. So the difference between blind SQL injection and in-band SQL injection is that you can see the results of your queries in the web app in in-band SQL injection, but in blind SQL injection you can't see any results on the web app when you do your injection strings. But the requests are going through nonetheless. And we also talked about the infamous authorization bypass. So authorization bypass is a type of blind SQL injection where insecurely written code allows the login of a user to a web app without the use of a proper username or password. So it's basically kind of like an SQL injection version of a skeleton key that lets you into somebody else's user account. So the most basic authorization bypass SQL command is illustrated by the SQL command shown above. Note that there's a space between the command after the double dashes. So we'll be using this particular payload in order to log into web apps that are vulnerable to this kind of injection. So let's practice with, well, let's not practice with the try hack me. We're going to try using Pico CTF first. So over at Pico CTF, and user LL says that that's awesome. Well, it's not awesome for the people who have their websites hacked, but it is awesome for people who are hacking in. Yeah. All right, so we've got picoctf.com, and let's go ahead and go to our practice page. So it looks like I'm not logged in, so I'm going to need to look up my credentials here. Oh no, I can log in. Great. Okay. So there are a few different SQL injection exercises over at PicoCTF. So let's look up these ones over here. I think SQLi Lite is the first one we're going to be looking at. Can you log into this website? All right. So this is the exercise we're going to be taking a look at first. If you don't have an account over at picoctf.com, then you can make a free account over there and then access this challenge over here. I don't think we have to log into our web shell to do this challenge, luckily, so we don't have to do that extra step. But let's take a look at the challenge. So it says here, SQLi Lite. Another important thing when you're doing SQL injection against a web app is you have to understand what type of software is being used. So if we were to ask our good friend ChatGPT, what are the most popular types of SQL software, it's going to give us a big list, and each one of these different softwares is going to have a slightly different syntax when you're trying to break in using SQL injection. So you've got Oracle database. MySQL is very popular. Microsoft SQL Server for any SQL that's running on Windows machines, and that's some other ones, PostgreSQL, SQLite, stuff like this. So we need to find out what kind of software is running when we do our SQL injection. All right, so let's go back to the challenge. Over here. Okay. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to launch the instance. So this challenge requires us to use a virtual machine to access the challenge. So we just need to click on the blue Launch Instance button, and then the virtual machine is going to start up, and we have about 15 minutes to solve this challenge. So try to log in over here. So we can go ahead and click on this button over here. And this is a login form. So we learned in the last class that so these login forms always, well, okay, not always, but most of the time, when you see a login form like this login form is actually sending a SQL statement to a database. And if the SQL statement returns true, which means that the username and the password are the same and they exist in the system, it's going to log you in. But we're going to be using our SQL injection bypass to solve this challenge, because we don't know what the what our username and password is valid for this one over here. And it says login failed. So for this challenge, it actually very conveniently tells us what SQL code is being run over here. So username this, password this. The SQL query that is being run over here is select star from users, where name equals this and password equals this. So by using the bypass technique, we can actually make it so that the name equals nothing, and then we supply a true statement, or 1 equals 1, which is true in programming sense. And then the rest of the statement right here, we're going to cancel this out. So we're going to get rid of all this, and we're just going to provide name equals blank or true. And because the statement is true, it's going to log us in. So let's test this out. So we're going to go back. Over here, we're going to provide the authorization bypass payload, which is single quote space or space 1 equals 1 space double dash space. So this is the true statement we need to supply in order to log us in. So this the reason why this works is because we're providing this or over here, which means one of these has to be correct to come back true. So the name isn't going to be true, but 1 equals 1 is the true statement that we're providing. And then the double dashes here, basically nullify all the SQL code that comes after. So over in the password, we can provide any password we want. So we can just do test, and then we can click on login, and then it says logged in. But can you see the flag? It is in plain sight. So the question now is, does anybody remember how to see extra stuff on a web page? So we see this over here. This is not the source code, but how do we see the source code? Do you remember? Right click. Okay, that's great. You can right click and then view the page source. And then you can see the flag over here. So the flag over here is hidden by this hidden tag right over here. Actually, I think you might be able to see it on the page if you highlight. No, you can't. Okay, but you can see it inside the source code here. So all you need to do is highlight the flag, then copy it, then go over to the Pico CTF challenge at the bottom over here, paste in the flag, and then click on Submit Flag. So user LL asks, how often can this work? So we're able to log in via SQL injection authorization bypass. You will occasionally see this work, but it's not guaranteed. Any company that has a website on the internet, most of them have been doing this kind of testing, and this kind of technique isn't going to work on most of them. But if this was maybe 20 or 30 years ago, then this kind of bypass would work on a lot of different web pages. But people have been they've been informed and they've been educated, so they know not to code their SQL in an insecure way. Okay, so let's move on to another challenge. So the next challenge is going to be, let's do SQL, more SQLi over here. Okay, so over here, and let me get the link for this challenge. Okay, so this is the More SQLi challenge. It says, can you find the flag on this website? Additional details will be available after you're launching your challenge instance. So let's launch the challenge instance. So all you need to do is click on the blue button. So actually before that, let's close out this this website over here. Let's just get rid of this. Okay, so we're going to click on Launch Instance over here. And let's just... Okay, so the instance is running now, so we can log into the associated web page. So in the description now it says, try to find the flag here, and there's a link. So we're just going to put that in a new tab, and then navigate to it. Okay, so this is kind of similar to the previous challenge. What I want you to do is I want you to try using the bypass payload, and I'll just type the bypass payload into the chat so you can take a look at it. It looks like that. So I want you to try logging in using the bypass payload, and I want you to tell me if you're able to log in successfully or not. So it looks like you were. Oh, okay. Let me try it. Okay, so it's going to be single quote or 1 = 1 space dash dash space, and the password I'm just going to put test. We click on login, and we're not actually logged in. So it would have told you that you were logged in if you're actually logged in. So the question is, why did this not work? So it says select ID from users where password equals test and username equals blank or when equals 1. So the problem in this case is, well, can you identify where the problem is in this case? So this is a SQL query over here. Can you identify why why our login bypass didn't work? So in this case, okay, so the reason why the bypass didn't work in this case is not because the code is secure. This code isn't secure. The reason why the bypass didn't work is because of positioning. So usually in a typical login SQL query, it's going to be select username, or in this case ID, from the users table where username equals something and password equals something. So in this case, password and username are switched around. So our bypass has to come before. And so the bypass payload has to come in this slot right here. Because it's in the second slot, it doesn't work. So in this case, we have to switch this around, and we have to put the bypass in the password field and not the username field. So we can go ahead and go back, and this time we're going to put the bypass payload in the password field. So the username is going to be whatever, and the password is going to be single quote or 1 equals 1 dash dash space. Click on login, and OK. So now we're logged in. So this application here, it also uses SQL. So there's a logout button, and there's also a search function in here. So anytime you have a search function, it's going to be communicating with the database also, because the database is going to retrieve the search items. So in this case, we've got cities, and we've got addresses and phone numbers. So we could search for something, and for example, let's just search for Algiers. Okay, so we get the entry for Algiers over here. So there's some sort of SQL going on in the background. So what we're going to do is we're going to try Algiers, but we're also going to put in an extra payload. In this case, the extra payload is going to be a union select payload. So it's going to be Algiers, and then single quote, and then space, and then we're going to union select. We're going to union select null. After null, we're going to give the double dashes and a space. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out how many columns are retrieved by this SQL query. Because when we do union select, we need the number of columns that we're retrieving with union select to match the original query's number of columns. So how many columns do you think are retrieved by this query? Can you guess? So when we search, it's searching for a number of columns. How many columns do you think it's retrieving in this original SQL query? So my guess is that it's retrieving 3 columns, because you've got your city, you've got your address, and you have your phone number. So the way you count columns when you do your union select is you have to do null, you have to put in a null with your union select for each column that you're trying to count. So in this case, we're going to do null, and then null, and then null, because we're guessing that there are 3 columns. So we got a new student coming in. So for the new student coming in, we're currently doing this challenge over here. I will give you the link for the challenge we're doing right now. Okay. So here we've got Algiers, and then union select null, null, null. So we're testing to see if the original statement has 3 columns in it or not. So we're just going to search, and because we got something back, we see that this original statement probably has three columns associated with that. So we're just going to do Algiers. So we've got null, null, null. We know this one works. But what we want to do, now that we know that there are 3 columns here, is we want to get some additional information. And first of all, what we want to do is we want to figure out what the name of this database is. Because if we can get the name of the database, we can get extra information. So what we're going to do is we're going to follow a little guide. And I actually wrote the guide, so it's okay. Let me get it. So HackerFrogs. Just a second while I grab the guide. So this one is web app hacking, and this is guides, beginner's SQL injection. Okay. So you can go ahead and take a look at the document over here. So user UF, what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and start up the instance for this challenge. So there's going to be a blue button over here. Click on it, start it up, and then go to the link that is created after the challenge starts. So afterwards, you're going to see this login page. So for the login page here, you need to provide the SQL login injection payload, which is single quote or 1 equals 1 space dash dash space. So we're going to provide it. You can provide it in both of the both the username and the password, just so you can skip this part. So copy that and then paste it into the password field, and then click on login. Okay, so let's take a look at the guide. So it says in the guide here, thank you very much for following on Twitch, Alchemist XP. Thank you very much. Okay, so how do we do SQL union select injection? So for most SQL injection challenges, we're either dealing with SQL login bypass or in-band union select SQL injection. So this guide will walk us through the process of working through an in-band union SQL injection attack, where the goal is to obtain data from the tables in the SQL database. So the first thing we need to do is identify the injection point. So we've already identified the injection point. And then the second step is to determine the number of columns for the union select. So in our case, we've identified that there are 3 columns. So if you give the union select with 3 columns over here, then it goes through. So for this challenge over here, you can go ahead and use these payloads over here to go step by step. So each one of these steps here, you can click on this button over here that's going to copy the payload, and then you can paste the payload into the app and then click on search. So in this case, it doesn't return anything because we didn't supply the name of an actual thing in the database. But if we do this, then we get the name of the city over here, but this union select also went through. Okay, so the third step is to identify the DBMS being used by the web app. So remember we were talking about the different software. So there's MySQL, MS SQL, SQLite, etc. Some challenges will tell you the type of SQL system being used. So I want you to take a look at the challenge over here and then click on the link and tell us what kind of SQL software is being used. Okay, so now user LL says that it is SQLi Lite. Great. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how to get the database using union select. So maybe in ChatGPT we can ask a question like, using SQLite, how do we select the database name using a select statement? So we can also check on the internet for something like an SQLite cheat sheet, which is going to give us a bunch of different commands that we can use. But we can just use something like this. So pragma database list. Pragma database list. Name from pragma database list. Okay. So let's just copy this code over here. Name from pragma database list. Sure. Okay, then we can go over to the application, and then here we're going to provide our 3 nulls, but in the place of the third null, we're going to replace it with the thing that ChatGPT suggested. Name from pragma database list where sequence equals 0, and then we'll put the double dashes on the other side. Okay, so we see that the name of the database is called main. So now that we know that the name of the database is main, we can continue. So we got the name of the database. The next step is so we got a few different payloads we can use. According to the guide, it shows a few different payloads, but we've got the name of the database. So we can skip over to part 4. Part 4 we're going to skip because this one is optional. The next one is part 5. Determine the name of the current database. We've done this. So part 5 we've also done. And we're going to part 6. So part 6 is determine the table names in the database. So now that we've got the name of the database, which is called main, we can try to figure out what tables exist in this database here. And let's see. So we're doing SQLite. It should be this one over here. So select name from SQLite master. Oh, I made a typo here. Where type equals table. Okay, so we're just going to copy that and then go over to the application. I think I've timed out. So I've timed out the application here, so I'm going to have to restart it. So I'm just going to exit from here. I'm going to restart my instance. And then I'm going to open it back up. Okay, so remember that we're just going to use the bypass. So it's quote or space 1 equals 1 space dash dash space. And we're going to put that in both fields, and then we're going to click on login. Okay, so let's continue from where we were. So we know that we've got 3 columns over here. Instead of the third column, we're going to highlight it and replace it with the payload. And the payload is hold on. Let me get the payload again. The payload is back over here, and the payload is select name from SQLite master where something something. So we can just copy that. Go back to the application. Paste in the payload and make sure that the typo is corrected over here. And it should look like this. So we don't need the select here. The select is already on over here. So it's just going to be this over here. So I'll provide that to people in the chat so you can take a look. And the whole payload is going to look like this. So after that, you can click on search, and it's going to give us the names of the tables. So this is going to look a little bit wonky because the application wasn't meant to give us this kind of information. So we see that there's a hints table, there's a more table, there's an offices table, and there's a users table. So what you would normally do is you would try to figure out which columns exist in each one of these tables, but we're only going to be doing it for the table that actually has the flag, because the flag is in this more table. Sorry to spoil everybody. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to figure out. Oh, user PK. User PK is here. Great. User PK, we're currently doing a Pico CTF challenge. It's this one over here. So once you get to the challenge, go ahead and start your instance, and then navigate to the website. So now that we know the names of the tables over here, and user PK, let me send you a message. When you get to the login form, I want you to put this in both the username and the password fields, okay? That's how you're going to log into the application. Okay. User LL says, mine has not loaded. Oh, okay. So if yours didn't load, can you paste in the payload that you're using? So if you're talking about, you need to fix the typo. The typo is where. Where is misspelled. You need to fix that up. Sorry about that. And you also need to get rid of the select, because the select, you don't need to put that in this case. So get rid of the select in the payload and fix the typo for where in the payload, and it should work. Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out what columns exist in this table. So if you're taking a look at the guide document over here, then so we're now on number 7. So this is part 7, determine the column names in the tables. So once we've identified the tables we want to look at, we need to figure out which column names exist in those tables. So it would be, let's see, we're dealing with SQLite, so we're using this one over here. So pragma table info, your table name. So we just need to get this payload and then go over to the application. We're going to get the payload from that works here, which is this union select with null, null, null. We're going to select the third null, and we're going to paste in our payload. So it's going to be pragma info, your table name. So your table name is not a valid table, so we need to replace this with more underscore table. So because that's the name that we got from the previous step. So let me get the payload for everybody here. This is what we want to put in. Okay, so after we put in the payload there, we're going to click on search, and nothing comes up. That's strange. Let's null, null, null. Hold on, let me get the payload over here. Table info, pragma table info, your table name. Let me ask ChatGPT real quick. Using SQLite, how do we use a select statement to retrieve column names in a specific table? Pragma table info table name. Okay, but I actually want to do it with the select statement. Select name from. Oh, okay. If you only want table names, you can use this. So let's use this. Okay, let me craft the payload. Just a second. Okay, so over here, instead of the third null, we're going to use this. Pragma table something something. We're going to provide it for the more underscore table. Then click on search. Let me copy that first. Okay, so we've got the flag and ID columns. So let me give everybody the correct payload. Okay, so what does this payload actually do? So it gets the column names from this particular table. Ooh. Yeah, like this. So we got the columns from the more table here. There's flag and ID. But so this is important sometimes, but most of the time we can actually, so we can get the flag and the ID columns by doing this. So we're going to get that previous payload. We're going to delete everything after null. And then we're going to select, we're going to give it this payload over here. So select null flag, because we know that there's a flag column, and it's going to be from more underscore table. So this is just like a regular old SQL query, select column from table, right? Okay, so let me copy this. We click on search, and we got the flag. So let me give everybody the payload we're using here. So underneath here, we've got the flag in the second row here. So all we need to do is highlight the flag and copy it. Then go back to the challenge, and in the flag submission field, paste in the flag and click on submit flag. You should be finished. Okay, so if there's anything you didn't understand, or if for some reason your payload wasn't working, please let us know in the chat, and we'll try to help you out. Okay. And if you manage to finish the challenge, please type in the chat, I got that extra info. Smiley face. Okay, great. All right. So we're gonna do one more challenge, and this one is gonna be using Try Hack Me. So let's see. So over here, Try Hack Me, we're going to be using the DVWA room. Let me get the link for that. DVWA. If you're not already logged into Try Hack Me, go ahead and log in now. And after you're logged in, go over to this link. So we're going to be doing this exercise. So we're going to be doing another little SQL injection exercise. But this one is going to be, we're going to try to go quicker this time because we don't have too much time left in today's class. So once you've come onto the web page here, let me leave the room. so I can demonstrate what it looks like when you've first arrived. Okay, so when you navigate to the link here, there's going to be this DVWA icon, and there's going to be this button that's labeled Join Room. You can go ahead and click on that. If you don't see the Join Room button over here and you're logged in, it probably means that you've already joined the room before. So after you've done that, I want you to click on two buttons. The first button is going to be this Start Machine button right here. Go ahead and click on that. And the second button you're going to click on is this Start Attack Box button. Go ahead and click on that as well. When you click on that, the web browser is going to split into two. So there's going to be the left-hand side, which is your Try Hack Me webpage, and the right-hand side is going to be the Attack Box virtual machine that you're going to be using in a little bit. So the way this room works is you've got your attack box over here, and the attack box is the machine that you're going to be using to communicate with the vulnerable web server. And the vulnerable web server is this DVWA room over here. So if your machines are starting up, you see the loading bar over here, and then you see the red target machine information bar on the left-hand side of the screen. Please type in the chat, "My stuff is starting up." Smiley face. Okay, so this is going to take another minute or so to start. So I guess I'm going to play a bird video so that we can all watch. Notes by Nisha is here. Notes by Nisha, thank you. Thank you for coming by. So let's see. Here's a video of some birds. There's my favorite Stellar Jay. This one is just a baby actually. He's just having the time of his life. He's eating up all the peanuts. Let's see. User LL asks, "What got you into hacking?" So there's a certain YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel is called let's see, the Cyber Mentor, and the Cyber Mentor also did a bunch of cybersecurity education videos, and I really got into cybersecurity by watching that YouTube channel. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to create beginners cybersecurity content for people like me who are just big beginners into cybersecurity. So that's why I started up my program over here. And there's a squirrel. That's a really big squirrel. Anyways, I think the machine should be started up now. So I'm going to close out the window over here. But I didn't get into hacking by hacking stuff when I was a kid or anything. I actually got into it really late. Anyways, okay, so our machine should have finished initializing now. You're gonna see this this terminal screen right here. It's a rainbow terminal screen. I want to click into it and then hit enter, and that's going to give us access to the attack box. So the attack box is currently in a split view. We want to put it in a different browser tab. We can go to the bottom of the screen. Okay. So some users are not finished. So when you're finished, you're going to see the rainbow terminal. So just click into the terminal, hit enter to get rid of it. Afterwards, you want to go to the bottom of the screen and click on this button over here. It's at the bottom of the screen and it's slightly to the right. It's labeled View in Full Screen. You're only going to see it after your attack box finishes initializing, but you want to click on it, and then it's going to put your attack box in its own browser tab, and this is what we want. So after we finish that, that's a good question. User LL asks, why is this person purple? I do not know. I guess this is not the Grinch. This is a legally distinct version of the Grinch. It's not the Grinch. Anyways, we're going to go over back to our original TryHackMe page, and after we put the attack box in its own tab, we're going to close out this section over here. So you're going to go down to the bottom, and then you're going to click on this button. It looks like a minus. It's labeled Exit Split View. Go ahead and click on that. User PK says, I want Grinch. Well, you're not going to get the Grinch here, but you're going to get the purple version of it, of the Grinch here. Okay, so go ahead and go down to, let's see, we need to get this DVWA IP address. So on the TryHackMe page here, this target IP address, you want to click on this button here. That's going to copy this IP address to your clipboard. Then go ahead and go back to the attack box and start up the attack box's web browser. So the attack box's web browser can be opened up over here. It's a Firefox web browser. Go ahead and click on that. So you can click on this button or you can click on this button. But either way, you're going to want to open up the attack box's web browser. Okay, so after the web browser opens up, you want to go to this button over here. I'm pretty sure you need to go to, there's a button on the left-hand side, and it is right here in the middle. It says Hide Show the Control Bar. You need to click on that, and then you need to click on this clipboard button over here. After you've opened up the clipboard, click into the clipboard and then paste in the IP address. So this is a bit of a pain in the butt, but you can't use the clipboard normally with this attack box. You have to paste it into here before you can use the IP address. After you've done that, go ahead and click on this Hide Control Bar button over here. Then go to the web browser, click on the address bar, paste in the IP address, and then hit enter. Okay, and then you're going to see the DVWA application over here. If you manage to navigate to this page and you can see the DVWA app over here, please let us know by typing in the chat, I see DVWA, smiley face. Okay, so now we need to log into the DVWA app. So username is over here. The username is going to be admin, and the password is going to be the word password. PASSWORD. Click on login. Okay, and we should be in the app. So after you've logged into the app, go ahead and go down to the bottom of the page. There's going to be 3 buttons down here. There's going to be the About, the PHP Info, and the DVWA Security. We need to change the security on this application before we can hack, because the security is set to impossible. You just need to click on the DVWA Security button. It says security level is currently impossible. We do not want this. So scroll down, click on the word impossible down here, and then select low. After you select low, click on submit. And then it should say security level is currently low. So after you've done that, then you can start hacking against these exercises. So the DVWA app is actually a place where you can practice a lot of different web app vulnerabilities. So if you don't recognize these vulnerabilities, it's fine. We just we haven't learned them. We want to click on the SQL injection button right here. So go ahead and click on that. And you should be on this page right here, Vulnerability SQL Injection. So the user ID is, well, we can just click on one. We can just put 1 and click on submit. Okay, so it gives us some information. So ID 1, first name this, surname this. So does anybody remember what we need to do our union select SQL injection? So if you remember, let us know. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to do a valid, so it's a valid selection and then single quote and then space, and then we're going to union select space, and then we're going to try to figure out how many columns exist. So first we're going to do null dash dash space and submit that. So it says the used select statements have a different number of columns. So this gives us an error message. So we can actually go back and we can correct ourselves. So we know that null, 1 column, is not it. So we can add another null. So we do comma null, so that's 2 columns, and then we submit again. So this works. So we actually get feedback from the application here. Union select null null space dash dash space. So if anybody's wondering what our payload was, let me paste that in the chat. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to figure out what software is being run on the system, because if we don't know what software is being run, we don't know what payloads to use to get our information. So we're going to go back to the guide, and remember the guide is over here. So we're currently on step 3. Identify the database management system being used by the web app. So we can try this one, this payload right here, version. And it says this is going to identify MySQL, MariaDB, or PostgreSQL. So we're just going to copy it. Then we're going to go back to the app. So instead of the second null column, we're going to put in this over here. Wait, what is it? Oh, okay. Darn it. We have to paste into the clipboard again. Okay, let me take a look at the payload one more time. Version parentheses. Okay, so we're going to try this one. Version parentheses. Okay, and we're going to see if this works. Okay, so this doesn't work because it's the wrong software version. So this is for MySQL is going to be sysdate from dual. Sysdate from dual. Let's try this one. So it's going to be sysdate from dual. Okay, let's try this one out. That corresponds to your MySQL server. Oh, okay. So we know that the system is actually MySQL. Great. So we figured it out. Now that we know the name of the software that's being used, we can look for the next step. And the next step is determine the name of the current database. So we know that select database. So we can just use this. So database over here, instead of the second null, we're going to replace this with database parentheses, and then click on submit. Let me copy this. There's something wrong in my payload. Let me take a look. One, you need to select null database. One. Oh, okay. No, the reason why this didn't work is because I forgot to put the extra space at the end. So this is very important. Whenever you do any of these SQL injection payloads, after the double dashes, you have to put a space. Because if you don't put a space, then the payload isn't going to work. Yeah, okay. Okay. So this is the payload. Remember that we have to put the extra space at the end of the payload. Okay, so we've got an admin. Oh, no. We've got DVWA. So DVWA is the name of the database. Okay. So everybody, we've actually run out of time, unfortunately. Okay. So after we get DVWA, we're gonna have to stop. So everybody, we might go over this in the next class, but yeah, we seem to have run out of time. So let me do the summary for today's session, and then we'll finish off the class. So let's review the SQL concepts we learned in today's workshop. So we learned about SQL. We practiced doing SQL union injection attacks on both the DVWA app, on TryHackMe, and on PicoCTF. We also practiced performing the SQL login bypass attack with the PicoCTF web app challenges. And we didn't learn about this stuff. But in the next class, so the next class is actually going to be the last class for the program, and we're going to be introducing a web app hacking tool that the professionals use. So this tool is called Burp Suite, and basically every professional who is doing web app hacking security testing, they use this tool. So we're going to be talking about this, and we're going to be demonstrating a couple of the capabilities that this Burp Suite program can do. All right, so until next time, Hacker Frogs, everybody, we're going to be doing some extra hacking exercises after this, but we're going to be taking a couple of minutes break while I finish off the class with the students on Zoom. So everybody, please listen to some music, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. All right, everybody, we're back, and let's see if Notes by Nisha, if you're still here, please let me know in the chat because I'm actually curious about what you've been up to lately. But if not, then not. Okay, let me stop the music, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up some new music. Yeah, Notes by Nisha, please let us know what you've been up to. And have you been practicing your SQL injection stuff? Just curious. Let me hook up some new music to the stream, and let's just start up some music and hook it up. Notes by Nisha says, seems like I quit every time we get to SQL injection. SQL injection, it's not the easiest topic. Let me, I'm still hooking up the music. Just a sec. Okay, you should be able to hear it now. Yeah. Notes by Nisha says, I've been working through rooms on THM on the new web app penetration testing path. Yeah, right. That's new. That's only like a week old, maybe a week or two. It's definitely been less than 2 weeks. And on the Web Security Academy on Portswigger. Okay, that's great. Okay, so let me stop this stuff that's happening on Try Hack Me. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little walkthrough video. I need some content for my YouTube page, and we're going to do a walkthrough video for the Volnix platform, which is over here. And the exercise that we're going to do a walkthrough for is the noob machine over here. So if you have never used Volnix before, you can find it over here. And now that we finished the class, we can do a video redeem. This one's Hack the Planet.
Hack the planet! Hack the planet! Shut up and get in.
Okay, so let's start up our machine. So these Volnix exercises they're basically vulnerable virtual machines that you have to download and deploy onto your own virtual machine network. And so after you've downloaded the machine and deployed it on your network, then you can start hacking against it using something like a Kali Linux box. Notes by Nisha, have you ever used Volnix before? Have you ever deployed virtual machines on your network and used Kali to hack against them? Let's start up that box. So this is the new box. I'm just going to start it up on my network, and then we can get started. Yes, you have. That's great. That's great. Sometimes there's it's really nice to be able to deploy something on your own network for hacking instead of having to log in to another platform via like OpenVPN, because okay, so login noob is at 10.02.73 because stuff on your own network is so much faster, and you also don't have to worry about walking away for a few hours if you need to take a break or do something else, because the machine's going to be in the same position when you come back. All right, so let's prepare our environment. So what I like to do is I like to create a couple of terminals here. So I'm going to create maybe 3 terminals so that I can switch back and forth between them when I'm doing my testing. So this so let's do the formal introduction right now. So this is a guided walkthrough for the noob machine on the Vulnix platform. And let's get started. So the first thing we like to do when we do these CTF exercises is we like to run an Nmap scan. So Nmap is going to let us know what ports are open on a given system. And Notes Manisha says, I worked through the shock machine with you a few weeks ago. Yeah, that probably would have been when I first looked at the shock machine. And yeah, it was actually it was a little tricky finding the shell shock vulnerable script, but yeah, we got through it eventually. So Nmap is going to run with the following parameters. So it's going to be -p- to scan all ports, small s capital C for common scripts against whatever we find on the system, and -V for versioning information for whatever services we find. We're going to run it with -VV for very verbose, which means we're going to get output back before the scan finishes, and we're going to run it with 4 threads -T4, so it runs very fast but not too fast. So let's run the scan. And we see that we've discovered 2 ports. We've got port 80 and port 22. So let's see what's going on with those ports. So port 22 is running the SSH service, Open SSH software, version 8.4. And port 22 is running a web server, HTTP, the Apache software, version 2.4.56. So these are fairly up to date, which means we're not going to be using any software exploits against these particular pieces of software. So what we're going to do is, let me grab my notes so I can not be super lost while I'm doing this walkthrough. Just a second. So this is the noob box. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some directory busting. So the first thing I like to do is I like to run Nikto. Nikto is a web app vulnerability scanner, and we're going to run that against the web port, which is port 80, which is default when we run the tool. And that's going to give us some extra information over here. So it's going to tell us that the Apache software is running with this version. Also, we're going to run another tool at the same time. So we're just going to go to another tab, and we're going to run the dirb tool. So the dirb tool is a directory busting tool, which is going to let us know what endpoints exist on the web server. Okay, we've got index.html. All right. We're also going to run a third tool, and this tool is going to be GoBuster. And GoBuster is a much more powerful directory busting tool. And in this case, we're going to scan for a bunch of different file extensions. So depending on what environment is being used, we might scan for some different file extensions. These are the ones that we're going to be scanning for in this case: CSS, SH, logmd, just a big list of them. Keep in mind that each one of these file extensions is going to increase the length of time that our scan takes by 100%. So if you've got 10 different file extensions, it basically means that the scan is going to take 10 times as long as it would normally take. So let's go ahead and start that GoBuster scan. Alright, then we find this peculiar file over here called notes.txt. So we want to investigate this. So we're just going to go over to our web browser, and let's navigate to the web page, which is at 10.0.273. So the default page over here is in place, which means that there's no actual website on the web server here. But if we go over to the notes.txt endpoint, we're going to see this note over here. So it says, configuring SSH, I closed the editor by mistake, and I lost the key. I can't find it. Signed, Diego. So this gives us a little bit of information. We know that there's this user on the system named Diego, and we know there's an SSH key that exists on the system as well. So the SSH key in this case is a file that users can use to log into a system without using a password, but they need to have the SSH key file located on whatever machine they're using to log in. So, and they also said they closed an editor by mistake and they lost the key. So this points to a certain type of file that we need to look for on the system. So in order to talk about this, I need to get my presentation slides. Hold on. So those are going to be at my HackerFrog walkthroughs. Volnix. This is the noob machine. Okay, let me get those slides. Okay, so in this case, what we're talking about here is we're talking about Vim text editor temporary files. So inside the note, it said that they were using a text editor and that they closed it automatically. So in this case, we're dealing with the Vim text editor, and the Vim text editor is common to Linux Unix systems and creates a temporary file while the document is being edited. This temporary file has the SWP file extension, and the name of the file is the same as the file being edited by Vim. So assuming that in this scenario, the temp file's name is ID_RSA, which is the default name for SSH private keys. So the file that we're looking for is named ID_RSA.swp. Okay, so let's look for this file on the web server. So over at the web server, we're going to manually navigate to the file ID_RSA.swp. So if the ID_RSA file was closed while it was being edited inside of Vim, then this file would exist. This file would exist, ID_RSA.swp. So we can navigate to this endpoint, and it indeed has a copy of the ID_RSA key. So we can use this to log in as the Diego user. Remember on the note, it noted that Diego was the author of the note. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy the contents of the SSH key here, and then we're going to create our own key. So we're just going to go over to one of our consoles, and I'm going to move into the temp directory to create this. I'm going to use nano, and I'm going to create a file called ID_RSA. The contents I'm going to paste from what I just got from the web page over there. So just going to paste this in. And after that, I'm going to save the file. If we take a look at the file permissions on this ID_RSA file over here, we see that these are not the correct permissions for SSH keys. SSH keys can't be... Zerx says, "Good morning, sir. Good morning to you, Zerx. Welcome. We're just doing a guided tutorial for the noob machine over in the Volnix website. So if you wanted to follow along with us, this is the machine that we're looking at right now." So what we need to do is we need to change the file permissions on this file so that there are no read permissions for groups or global users. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this command, chmod for change mode to 600 for ID RSA. Okay? After we give this command, then we see that the file permissions on the ID RSA SSH key has changed, and there's only read and write access for the file owner, which is the permissions we need. Okay, so now we're going to try to use SSH as the Diego user to 10.0.273, and we're also going to try to log in using an SSH key with the I flag over here. So it's going to be ID RSA. Okay. So this is our attempt to log in to the server using SSH as the Diego user, using the key. Are you sure that we want to continue connecting? We answer yes. And it's going to ask us for a passphrase for this key, RDRSA. So we don't know what the passphrase is, so we actually can't answer this question. So we're just going to quit out of this. And what we need to do now is we need to do a hash crack for the IDRSA key. So in order to crack the passphrase for the IDRSA key, we need to do two steps. The first step is to run a tool called SSH2John on the IDRSA key, and we're going to output this to a file called diego.hash. What this tool is going to do is it's going to extract the passphrase hash from the key, and it's going to output it to this file called diego.hash. So after we run that, and if we take a look at the diego.hash, this is the file hash that we need to crack in order to get the passphrase for the IDRSA key. So the program we're going to use is called John the Ripper. So we can run it in this format right here. So it's just John and then space and then provide a word list to use to crack against. So basically what John is going to do is it's going to try to crack the password hash for the diego.hash file over here, and it's going to try to compare it against all of the passwords in this really long list right here called rocku.txt. Rocku.txt contains about 14 million different passwords, and it's going to try to find a match and return to us the correct passphrase for this hash right here. So we're just going to run it, and it comes back pretty quickly that the passphrase for this IDRSA key is San Diego. So that kind of makes sense because the user's name is Diego, so that's that. So okay, now that we have the passphrase for the IDRSA key, we can log in as the Diego user using SSH. So we're just going to run this same command to try to log in using the IDRSA key as Diego. And we're going to use the passphrase Diego, San Diego. Passphrase San Diego. Now we're logged in. Okay, so now that we're in, we have to put on our scary hacker voice. So let me put on the scary hacker voice.
Hey everybody, this is the Scary Hacker Voice. We put on the Scary Hacker Voice every time we break into a server, and we're doing malicious hacker stuff, and we have to say, we're in.
Alright, so now that we've broken into the server, the first thing I want to do is I want to see if there are any elevated privileges that we could I want to see if there's any way we could elevate our privileges on the system. So I'm going to run this command right here, which is sudo -l, which is going to tell us if we have permissions on the system to do anything as the root user. So we see here that sudo does not exist on the system. Orden no uncontrata. I think that means command not found. And Larjox is here. Larjox, hello. Nice to see you here. And yeah, we're doing a little guided walkthrough for this particular CTF box. Larjox, what are you up to? Are you having fun on this Monday morning? Sorry, not Monday morning. It's probably not Monday where you are. Or maybe it is. Not sure. Anyways, let's see. Okay. So this box is actually kind of devious. There are no ways to elevate our privileges on the system. So what we're going to do is we're going to resort to kind of a last resort technique, and that technique is going to be we're going to try to brute force the password for the root user. So there are only two real users on the system. There's the Diego user that we're currently using right now, and there's the root user which exists on the system. And this is not a technique I typically like to use, but when you run out of options, you'll use whatever options are available to you. So Simon Dante says, top of the morning to you. Larjox says, now it's 3 a.m. Larjox, you keep very unusual hours. But I guess most hackers are night owls. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cyberner Dante, hello and welcome. What fun are you getting up to today? And let's do a fun little video redeem. And this is the bully bird. This is one bird bullying another, but it's super cute because the birds are cute. Okay, so we have to use some sort of tool to brute force the root user's password, and the tool that we're going to be using is called suforce. SUFORS, FORCS, and you can find the suforce tool on GitHub over here. I'll just link the page, and basically, let me explain. So this is privilege escalation. So privilege escalation in this case is going to be root user password brute force. Any user on a Linux system may be using a weak password, and there's a tool that we can use to abuse the SU binary and attempt brute force access. The tool we will use is called suforce, and it is a bash script which attempts access as a specified user and iterates over a password list. Okay, so the script is located over here, and what we're going to do is we're going to copy the contents of the script. So we're just going to copy the raw file, and then we're going to create the file on the system. So we're just going to move into the temp directory to do this. We're going to nano SUFORS, FRCS, and then we're going to paste in all the code we just copied. Then we're going to save the file. Okay, Summoner Dante says, working and adding on my command injection word list and doing more bug bounty. Nice to hear that you're getting up to some hacking fun. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to give the suforce script execute permissions. So we're going to use the chmod command again. So we're going to give the execute permissions with the +X, and we're going to provide the name of the file, which is suforce. After that, we need to create a word list. So the word list is going to be the first 5,000 lines of the rocku.txt word list. So we're just going to head, hold on. I'm going to put this in the temp directory. Okay, so we're going to output the first 5,000 lines of the rocky.txt word list. We're going to redirect it into the temp directory, and we're going to call this file rocku5000.txt. So after we've done that, we're going to move into the temp directory, and the rocku5000.txt file is here. We're going to transfer it over to the victim system by using wget. So before we can do that, we have to serve this particular file on our own attacker web server, and we're going to do that with python-m http.server80. This is going to start a web server in the temp directory. So after we do this, we should be able to download the file from our victim machine. So we're starting our HTTP server, then we go back to the victim machine, and we're going to download the file using wget. We're going to wget and provide the IP address of our attacker machine, and then specify the file that we want, which is rocku5000.txt. Okay, so we see that it is downloaded. If we take a look at the HTTP server that we just stood up, there was a GET request to rocku5000.txt. Okay, so after that we can actually close out our. We can quit out of our Python HTTP server, and we can run our suforce script. So it's going to be. So let's find out how to use this file. It says usage is going to be suforce-u user-w word list. So let's run the file with user root, and word list is going to be rocku5000.txt. So just so we can actually do stuff on the system afterwards, we're going to output this to a file called root_brute.txt, and we're also going to run this as a process. Okay, so the script is going to run in the background. So you will find on this box that there isn't really anything that we can do to elevate privileges other ways. So if you take a look over here, there's nothing in the op directory. If you take a look at the SUID binaries, you'll see that the SUID binaries over here are not any SUID binaries that are vulnerable to any exploits. So we're only left with brute forcing the root user's password. So it's going to move back into the temp directory, and let's see if we manage to brute force the root user. So I'm just going to take a look at the root brute.txt. So it's still working. So the script is not super fast, because you have to wait for the system to come back each time you give one of these passwords. So we're just going to wait for a little bit. So in the meantime, if anybody has any questions that you want to ask about cybersecurity, or if you've got any fun commentary that you want to provide, go ahead and let us know in the chat. Here's a new bird video that I took relatively recently. And this is a northern flicker woodpecker, and these guys usually don't come over to the bird feeder. But I guess there isn't very much food these days because it's winter. So this is a male northern flicker woodpecker. You can tell from the red mustache that it has. So these guys. The difference between the males and the females is that the males have this mustache, Sometimes it's red and sometimes it is black, but they're gorgeous little birds, and you can see by the black little bib and also the spotting on its chest. It also has a kind of ripple design on its wings. But I think later on in this video he gets a little bit curious about the camera. Let's just speed this up. So right over here, he gets curious about the camera. So you notice it's got this really long tongue. Maybe it's not so apparent. Anyways, that's the northern flicker woodpecker. Let's check in on the file and see if it's done or not. So let's look at the... Okay, so this is still running. It's at 39%. Well, maybe we can watch another bird video. So another thing about, I think this video highlights the Stellar Jays and how the Stellar Jays like to shake peanuts. So each time a Stellar Jay has a group of peanuts that it sees, it's going to shake the peanuts to see which ones are good. And it might take a couple of, it might shake each peanut a couple of times to figure out which one it likes. So yeah. Oh, this one it doesn't shake. Let me see if I can find... Okay. So over here, it's going to grab a peanut. It's going to shake it. Is it this peanut? Does it like this peanut? So it's just going to shake the peanuts and to try to figure out which one it wants to take away. And let's see if we can... come back and anyways, those are my favorite birds. Those are Stellar Jays. Okay, so let's check again. Hopefully the script has gotten a hit. Okay, hasn't come back yet. Let's do one more video. So this is the old bird feeder. And this is just a mess of sparrows all going to town on the peanuts. So we've got some ads starting up a little bit. So we'll check in on the script after the ads stop running. People who are watching on Twitch are going to have to endure some ads, unfortunately. It's just the way the website works. But in the meantime, we can watch the Stellar Jays over here. So I'm just going to wait for the ads to stop. They should be a couple of minutes. Hopefully by then the brute forcing script is finished, and it'll give us the password for the root user. Okay, so the ads have started, and they're going to take about 90 seconds. So we'll come back and check in on the brute forcing script in about 90 seconds. So I really like the Stellar Jays. They're my favorite bird, but they're actually well, I guess I could say this about all birds, but no birds are super friendly, and they usually like to scare off other birds, especially other smaller birds, if they see them around the food that they want. But the neat thing about birds is that they all instinctively know which birds they can beat in a fight. So they've got a sort of pecking order among each other. And even among small birds, they know which small bird is tougher than which other small bird. So that's a very interesting thing about nature. So even among the same species of bird, one bird will usually know which bird it can beat and which bird it's which bird it can beat and which bird that they should watch out for. Okay, so we're back. Let's take a look at the exploit script. Sorry, the brute forcing script again. Okay, so our brute forcing script has come back, and it was able to identify the root user's password. So it got through about 3,000 words before it was able to identify the root user's password, which is root beer. That's fun. The root user's password was root beer. So now that we know that, we can assume the identity of the root user by using su by itself, and we need to supply the password, which is root beer. And now we are root. Okay, which means we can redeem this.
What are you?
I'm system root.
Okay, so now that we're root, we are almost finished with the exercise. So in any of these CTF exercises, the goal is to read the flag, the root.txt flag inside of this inside the root directory. So in the root directory here, root.txt, if we read this and we record the flag, then we've finished the challenge. But the people at Vulnix have asked us not to show the root flag for any of their machines on stream or in any walkthroughs. So we're not going to read the file in a conventional sense. Instead, we're going to redirect the output of cat root.txt into a file called iReadRoot.txt. So we're going to compare the file hash values with the md5 sum command, root.txt, iReadRoot.txt, and we see that the hash values are equal over here, which means that we've essentially read the root.txt file, and we are now finished the challenge. All right, so thank you very much for watching this walkthrough for the noob challenge over on vulnix.com, and we'll see you next time. But that was just for the YouTube video. We're actually not finished. Okay, so that actually took more time than I thought it would, but we've got a few minutes to go before we do our second piece of content, and our second piece of content is going to be. What is it going to be today? We're going to be starting our Windows journey. So usually we only do hacking against Linux targets, but I'm going to be starting a series of videos where we hack against Windows targets, and this is not something I'm used to anymore. I used to have a pretty good sense for hacking Windows targets back in the day, maybe a couple of years ago, but I haven't done it in such a long time. So I've kind of lost my edge. But we're going to be using the HackMyVM.eu service over here, and I need to log in. Okay, so, and we're going to be hacking against the liar challenge. So if we go to machines over here, if you want to try out the HackMyVM.eu platform for yourself, you can do so at this webpage over here. You've got all sorts of different machines over here, and you can order them by difficulty as well as the OS over here, Windows or Linux. You can also hack them according to different vulnerability tags over here. So if you're looking for a machine that deals with local file inclusion or port knocking or network file system, you can search and see these two machines deal with that particular vulnerability, and look for your machines that way. Okay, so another thing that I've really been having fun with is doing some programming challenges. So over at HackMyVM, they've got the HMV lab section over here, and they have this lab over here called Temperance. So these CTF labs over here are a bunch of different programming challenges, and they involve some basically using code to achieve some different goals. So let's go over to flags, and let's take a look at one of the levels that I'm on right now. I think the last challenge I did was level 24. Yeah, so I recently finished this one over here, and in this mission, you receive a URL that you have to visit, and you have to return the string found on the web. So we have to write up a script that is able to do this exact thing over here. It's going to give you an input over here, and you're expected to send certain output back to the server in order to get the flag. So let's try a level that is a little easier. I finished these different levels on stream. Let's try level 3 on stream this time. So in this mission, you will receive a string in base64, and you must decode and return the result. So the server is going to send us a string that looks like this. It's a basic base64 encoded string, and you need to send the decoded version of the string in order to finish the challenge. So let me get the base script for completing these challenges over here on level 0. If you're interested in this series of challenges, you can go ahead and navigate to this page after you've logged into HackMyVM.eu. So we're going to work on this for another 10 minutes or so, and then we're going to start our next challenge. Our next CTF challenge, rather. Which is going to be the liar machine over at HackMyVM.eu. In the meantime, let me close out my virtual machine here, and let me start up the new virtual machine. So the new virtual machine is going to be the liar machine, and I see that this is a Windows 10 install. Yeah, this is Windows 10. So I think this is running right now. I'm just going to put it away. We're going to be hacking against this in a little bit. In the meantime, I'm going to try finishing one challenge from, let me get rid of some of these files that we used for the previous challenge. Okay. So I'm going to get the, oh, that's not. Okay, so let's go over here, level 0.